Live from Shore Manor Studios, this is Tales from a Small Town Journalist with Matt Shore.
Hi guys, thanks for checking out this episode of Tales from a Small Town Journalist, the podcast dedicated to all the weird and wonderful stories you are only going to hear about from reporters working in small communities just like yours. I'm Matt Shore, and I was a small town journalist for almost 10 years before I finally hung up my camera and my notepad. And in that time, I had some really unique and interesting experiences dealing with the public, and I got to know some other people who also got some really unique and interesting experiences dealing with the public. Before I go any further, I do want to make sure and mention that this is a listener-supported podcast, supported by wonderful folks just like you. There are a few ways that you could show us some support. First, you could check out my website. Go to www.mattshore.net. Go check out the bookstore and see if there's anything there that strikes your fancy. We've got young readers books, we've got adult fiction, we've got science fiction, we've got horror, we've got comic books, we've got a little bit of everything. Another great way to show some support would be to just spread the word. Tell people about us. Let people know about this goofy little podcast and how people have got to listen to it and hear the wonderful stories that journalists from their hometowns have to tell. Use Twitter, use social media, use Facebook, use Instagram, Snapchat, maybe hold off on TikTok for the time being, but just get the word out there and let people know about us. Let them know they need to listen to us. And finally, go to iTunes or wherever you listen to your podcast and drop us a kind review. Give us 5 stars and put the word out there. That's another great way to help our visibility, boost the algorithm and all of that sort of thing. This episode, we're going to be speaking with Jimmy Settle, business and government writer for the Leaf Chronicle newspaper in Clarksville, Tennessee. Jimmy is as much of a pillar of this community as the newspaper he writes for. He's been doing this gig right here in his hometown for almost more than 30 years. So quite a testament to his career to dedicate his life to one area the way that he has. And he has seen a lot of things during his time here, a whole lot of things. Some of it's pretty wild, some of it's rather outrageous. So without further ado, let's turn things over to that and let's connect with Jimmy Settle right now. Okay, so I'm talking with Jimmy Settle, the business and government news reporter for the Leaf Chronicle newspaper in Clarksville, Tennessee. Jimmy, big thanks for joining me today.
Great to be here, Matt. Good to see you again, too, my brother.
Yeah, good to see you, too. So as we get started, let's introduce people to you. So tell us a little bit about how you ended up in the position that you're in now, because I'm sure it's a long and glorious tale.
Well, it started my journey started around 1987 when I was a senior at the University of Tennessee at Martin and studying journalism there. And I was needing to do some practical senior seminar work, and I landed a job with the company. Back then it was called Multimedia instead of Gannett. I landed a job actually in my hometown as editor of the Stewart Houston Times, and it's a weekly newspaper that Gannett now still owns. So I did that for about 2 years. It's just very, very small town weekly newspaper covering Stewart and Houston counties here in northern Middle Tennessee. And about 2 years after that, the publisher at the time, Gene Washer, brought me here to Clarksville to be a reporter here at the Leaf Chronicle. And except for one little blip around 1999, 2001 time frame, I've been here pretty much ever since, going on 31 years, I believe it is, something like that. I lose track, but covered pretty much everything. As you know, Matt, you used to be here yourself. I covered pretty much everything that we cover here at one time or another. So
you're a pillar of this community and this paper.
The sanity there, as people ask me how I've kept the sanity, don't know, just enjoy what I do, I guess. I don't even know any other way to explain it, but we're still here and kicking along. So I'm doing it. And like as you said at the beginning, I currently cover business news here in Clarksville, as well as pretty much all the local government and a little bit of state government that's relevant to our community. So that's me in a very, very nutshell.
Well, there's always some nuance to people's personal stories, so that's what I really want to dig into and hear about, because I know that when even in my short time with the Leaf Chronicle, definitely short compared to you, I noticed that Clarksville's city government in particular is kind of unique, at least by my experience. I grew up in a town with just, I don't want to call them good old boys, but it was a very small government for a very small town, population of 10,000 people. And there just wasn't a whole lot of aggression, we'll just say, that happened at the local level. And then I came to Clarksville, and it was a whole new world, because the euphemism I'll say is there was definitely some aggression in the local government at times.
And there still is, trust me. That hasn't gone away at all. I'm looking at a city council meeting tomorrow night that's probably going to last at least 3 hours, if not more, just looking at their agenda and some of the controversial stuff that's on there. So it's going to be another doozy.
That is brutal. God bless you, man, doing the Lord's work.
Thanks, man.
Let's hear some of your personal stories. I know you've got to have a few real good ones from this town.
Well, I do. I gave that some thought this morning. And one that comes to mind immediately is, back when I very first started here, I think I was, they were looking at me as the real cub here, and they had this great idea to send me out with a building codes guy on an inspection of a house. And it was over here near the downtown area, kind of close to the Austin Peay State University campus. There was a lady there who was being inspected because there had been complaints about something like 56 cats in her house, in a house that was probably, I'm going to guess, was roughly maybe 1,000 square feet, maybe not even that much, not sure. And and if you've ever watched that show on TV called Hoarders,
I have. My wife is a huge fan.
Yeah. Well, this would have given every one of those examples that you see on that show a very good run for their money. I was wading knee deep, sometimes waist deep, through refuse, and 56 cats in that house. You can pretty well imagine what that smelled like. So I immediately left. I had to come back here and write the story. And then I immediately went and took the longest shower I've ever taken in my life. So, that's one that just lives in my memory. And yeah. And then there was the time that I was called out. Well, there's somebody who has a really cute little pet that they want you to meet for a possible story. Might be a kind of a good little feel-good human interest thing. And come to find out that they were keeping a buzzard in their house as a pet. They named it Buzzy.
Oh gosh.
Buzzy the buzzard. Yeah, Buzzy, just sort of sat around on the sofa watching television with mom and dad, and they might clean him up after him every now and then. They might not. It was sort of one of those things. So I met Buzzy one time. That was also early in my career.
That must have made a great picture, though.
It really did. I recall getting a good one. Of course, that was in the black and white days. I'm not even sure we did much color photography then, but I got a good shot of mom petting Buzzy on the head, and it was really heartwarming. You had to be there for that one, and then, as you know, because I think I was doing this when you were here, I often write about new restaurants and stuff like that, new businesses here in town. So an ongoing thing that I deal with all the time as I cover new restaurants is people want to cook up everything on their menu and bring it out to me and set it in front of me and sit there and watch me try to eat it all. And if you don't eat it all, yeah, I have ruined many a dinner.
I remember.
Putting a smile on, and there was one example too of an elderly lady. I went to her home one time. Her name shall remain nameless. And I wasn't expecting this, of course, but she had taken the time to bake myself and the photographer at the time, Greg Williamson, 2 coconut cream pies. First of all, coconut's a wonderful thing. I'm sure it's just something that I don't particularly care for myself. And I'm sure for what this was, it was very, very good. But I had to sit there in front of her and eat half of a coconut cream pie.
Oh my gosh. I don't like coconut either, so I sympathize with that. That would be brutal.
So, yeah, that's the inside of journalism. You know, those are some examples of some stuff that I've had fun with over my time here, and there's a lot of others. But I can remember one restaurant that opened up out here off of Warfield Boulevard, and it's similar in some respects to O'Charlie's, I think. But I mean, they came out with pretty much an example of everything on their menu. And I was supposed to taste it all. And I'm like,
wow.
I really didn't need to do that. I just kind of wanted the nuts and bolts of you guys opening, what you're all about and that kind of thing, for a basic inverted pyramid story about a new restaurant opening. But no, you got to tell us what you think about this, how it tastes, does it work? Give us your honest, because I guess they thought I was a food critic, which I'm not really technically a food critic. I just write about new restaurants and stuff. But so, yeah, there's some examples for you.
Now, speaking of food, that makes me think of the late Philip Gray. Speaking of local legends, he became
Yes.
one really quick in his time there. But I ended up getting a weekly column where I basically just told embarrassing stories about myself, first as a newlywed, then as a homeowner, and then as a parent. And
Right.
there's a lot of ground to cover there. But Phil ended up getting a column about where he went to all these new restaurants, and I guess he was basically a food critic. He ate the food and then wrote about it. It was always glowingly kind.
Yeah.
But I just thought, man, that's what I should have done. Why did I volunteer to tell embarrassing stories? I could have been going to eat at these restaurants and doing that.
Phil, may he rest in peace. He loved doing that. He really did. He got so excited about doing that. Of course, he, as you know, covered the military here, and he was passionate about that as well. But yeah, I always enjoyed reading I enjoy reading your columns too, by the way. They're great, fantastic, and always enjoy that.
You're very kind. I don't think I hold a candle to Phil though, because he had just the way he wrote. I don't know, and it was amazing when I found out that he had I don't think he had any like classes or education like dedicated to creative writing, but he was one of the best writers I ever read.
Yeah.
Just the way he told stories the best way I can describe it is they flowed. And
Yes.
there was a flow to his stuff that you don't see very many places.
Yeah, very gifted, very gifted. He is definitely missed big time.
But he was also very difficult to edit because he was so passionate about his stuff, and so much of it was so good, but I've got to find a way to make it fit on the page. It's
Right.
like, okay, well, this is going to have to go in this. And then he would come back and say, oh, does that really have to go? It's like, well, something does.
Yeah, it was lengthy stuff. I mean, Phil could have easily written a book in maybe one night. I think he could have probably just written a complete epic novel in one night, and because he could be, I mean, when the ideas started flowing, I mean, onto the page, I mean, it was just endless. You're right, but beautiful prose, beautiful writing. Good.
You know, we speaking of like restaurants and city government and aggression, this does make me think that you might be the person to ask about this. This seems like this ongoing rivalry / lawsuit between Black Horse Brewery and the city of Clarksville.
Yeah.
I came into that way late in the game because apparently this has been going on for decades. Can you shed some light on this for me and anybody else like me who is not so much new to town, but we're much younger citizens of this town than this controversy is.
Yeah. Well, I've written a few stories about it. Chris Smith, when he was here, he wrote some about it. And it actually goes back to Kim McMillan's administration. It's actually transcended 2 mayoral administrations here at Clarksville. It started with Kim, and now Joe Pitts inherited it, and he's really having a lot of fun with it too, I'm sure.
I'm sure.
But it's one of the most complex, convoluted lawsuits I've ever been around or had the, I guess, opportunity to write about, because not even the lawyers really understand it all. But it has to do with an alley behind the Black Horse that the city and Jeff Robinson have a dispute over, and Jeff wants access to it, and he wants the city to live up to some entanglements that he said he was promised way back when Mayor Johnny Piper was in office, so that he can eventually, and he's actually already had it designed and planned in the works, so that he can eventually put a brew house back there. But as things stand right now, because of all the legal entanglements between him and the city, he can't put it back there. And he claims that basically, in a nutshell, that the city is keeping him from being able to expand his business here and be profitable. So he has opened a brew house in Knoxville, where his business also has a presence, as some people in our area know. But he still wants to do the brew house here. There is a settlement on the table, in fact, tomorrow night, as part of that lengthy city council agenda that I was talking about a few moments ago, that he says would end this all if the city council agrees to it. And it's about $1.2 million that they're asking the city to pay him to put all of this to rest. However, from the city's perspective, they've won most of the motions in this two-faceted, basically a two-faceted property dispute lawsuit, excuse me. He's only won one motion before a judge. The city's won the rest of them, but one of the most recent entanglements has been over who should pay the attorney's fees for the one settlement motion that he won. And so they're fighting over that. The attorneys, the legal fees keep piling up and up and up and up and up. And of course, it's all on the taxpayer's tab. And it's just very convoluted. And maybe we're going to see a resolution to it soon. I know we're kind of all beginning to be a little bit sick of hearing about it, quite frankly. And it's very costly, very, just incredibly one of the most costly lawsuits that the city has had to deal with in its history. So they've actually passed an ordinance recently. It doesn't affect this particular suit because it was grandfathered in under the old rules. But going forward, if any lawsuit comes before the city council that $150,000 or more, the full city council is going to be voting on it now, rather than it being thrown back to the city finance committee to deal with, which is a committee of about 3 or 4 people. The full city council says, we're sick of that. We want, these things start adding up and becoming this expensive. We all want to say, and what happens with this. And so anyway, long story short, Councilman David Allen has the latest motion on the floor tomorrow night to put an end to this once and for all. But it won't be cheap. But his argument is, if we let this continue going on, it's going to be a lot more expensive than $1.2 million. So there you have it, if any of that makes any sense at all.
It's no wonder this has taken so long. So that's going to be a very, use the word aggressive again, meeting, I'm sure.
It is. It's going to be. I might as well just make about a pot of black coffee. It's election night tomorrow night too, as you know, but I'm not even going to be involved in covering the election because there's so much going on at City Hall. We're going to have our other 2 reporters up here covering the contested races on the ballot tomorrow night, so that I can focus on fun at City Hall.
Is pizza still the tradition on election night there at the Leaf Chronicle? It
is, but unfortunately with COVID, we're all working remotely, so it might finally come to an end. Unless we all go on Zoom and eat pizza in front of each other or something like that. Maybe that's the way we keep the tradition going.
Yeah, call in Domino's and deliver to everyone's house.
Right.
Well, speaking of COVID, that does raise a question that I haven't had a chance to talk to anybody about right now. Like, how has that impacted the way you guys work and function right now?
Oh, it's been crazy. I mean, I'm sitting here in the newsroom right now, but most of the people work from home. Some of them haven't been in here hardly any since all this started back in March. And because, well, I mean, it's a company order, corporate Gannett wide order. We are not to be unless we're in here by ourselves, and unless we have a hardship with getting internet access or something like that, we're not to be in here. So I come in here some because I live out in the boondocks where we sometimes don't have very good internet, frankly. So I come in here, and I'm usually in here by myself when I am here, so it's no big deal. But plus, as you may know, they've done a lot of remodeling up here. It doesn't look anything like it used to when you worked in here, because they've subdivided this whole floor of the second floor of the Leaf Chronicle, and now there's other offices up here besides ours. We occupy maybe about a third of the space up here that we used to, but that's an aside. At any rate, yeah, it's been weird. We've worked through it. Things are still going, and to the average reader out there in reader land, they may think that we're all sitting up here like we always do, but it's dark in here right now, and we don't even have a receptionist up here. She works from home as well, and I check the phones once a day to see if anybody has a complaint about their newspaper delivery or something like that, and I'll let her know. In that case, I'll send her an email or something like that. But it's just working around it all, and I don't know when it's going to end. Some of the indications we've gotten is that it may be this way at least through the end of this year. And
that's what I'm hearing too.
Yeah. So.
Yeah. Well, for whatever it's worth, I will say I subscribe through the Leaf Chronicles app on my phone, so I always get my news updates there. And for whatever it's worth, you guys have done a great job keeping people like me updated, because that's basically where I rely on to find out where Tennessee's at, what's going on, if there's any kind of really important breaking news about it. I can always rely on my phone will buzz me, and I'll look at it and like, there's the info, there's the latest stats, there's where we're at.
Thank you. That means a lot. That means more than you know, and of course, coming from you as a journalist yourself, a communications guy, that means a lot. Because I don't think it's any secret to anybody. These are not the best of times for the news media, and we've kind of been hammered in our image, as well as as just our business model and changing and the challenges that come with that. So to hear a compliment every now and then means the world to us. Appreciate it a lot.
Oh, you bet. That's one thing. Every episode, I think I try to tell anybody listening, like, if you know a journalist, whatever level they're working at, let them know they're doing a good job, because I know when I was there, we didn't hear it nearly enough, and that was before having to deal with, on top of the responsibilities of journalism, also dealing with a pandemic that's completely changing the way that we have to function as a society. So it's more important now than ever. Little attaboys here and there,
It is. It is. It's great. Yeah. Yeah. I was talking with one of my coworkers yesterday about how COVID is just changing the way we think about everything. I mean, right now they're trying to figure out how to start schools around here, but that's just one component of our lives that it's changing. I mean, the argument could be made that, do we really even need offices anymore? After this is all over with, we've had this experiment. Does it work better for people to work at home if they can? I don't have the answer to that, but it's definitely a question that's out there.
Yeah, I've heard of various institutions talking like, after a few months of everybody working from home, they started kind of looking at the finances and the situation. Well, everybody's doing just as well working from home right now, and we're paying millions of dollars renting out all these buildings and office spaces. Could we save money on all that by just letting people work from home?
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
I haven't seen any firm movement in any direction on that just yet. Probably waiting until this all passes, but it'll be interesting to see if those conversations continue afterwards.
It really will. And talking about school, I was having a little conversation yesterday with the mayor, the county mayor here, Jim Dewart, about, and I just posed the question. I mean, after this is all over, and I know we have a school overcrowding situation that's pretty severe here in Montgomery County. Is virtual learning the wave of the future to put an end to some of the school overcrowding? And he said, that's something we're already talking about. And he said, you and I grew up in a time when part of the school experiences was playing with your friends and that interaction that you have inside a designated school building. But will it always be that way with the technology we have now? It may not, and I don't personally like that, but it may have to be the way it is. So we'll see.
Time will tell. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Uncertain times. That's for sure.
It is. It is,
Yep.
Matt.
Well, rather than end on any somber notes like that, do you have any other great stories of your fun times with the public that you can share?
I just think that I've always said that like anybody who gets into this business, you start out getting into it maybe for the craft of writing or just the fascination with what a media person does on a day-to-day basis. But I think over time, and I put a lot of time and distance between me and that first day that I came into work here. I think over time it becomes as much or more about the people that you meet and just the individual personalities and the fascination with getting to know the differences between personalities. And I have had the opportunity to meet a incredible number of people. Some of them are celebrity status, even on the national level, and some of them are just people who are celebrities maybe in their front yard, and that's it, and they're all equal to me. But I just love people, and I think that's the thing that I enjoy about it the most now is, I'm getting old enough now where people are starting to ask me the R question. When is the R day coming for you? Do you have any idea on the R day? I don't know. I've still got a little time yet. Probably in the way the economy is nowadays, it may be never for me. But I know that the thing that I love most about it now is just every day getting out there. And of course, it's limited right now because of COVID, but getting out there and meeting, interacting with people. And we've got a blue million good, fine, decent people. And I've always, journalists, the other thing about journalism is we're taught early on to be eternally skeptical of everything we hear and everything we see, do. And I get that. And I think it is important to ask questions and be skeptical. But I've also always believed that it's important to, a person's innocent until they're truly found guilty. So you don't convict people through the media. I've just always been about the truth and about facts. And I've always felt like that's just the way to go. We don't assume anything. We don't convict people. We just assume that they're good until we learn otherwise. It's mind-boggling when I think about the experiences that I've had here. When you talk about 30-something years, that's just a lot of water under the bridge. But I just keep coming back to those times when I go to Riverfest or when I go to, a function that's happening here in Clarksville, and I'm able to, in a unique way, interact with some of the interesting personalities that we have here. And everybody I've learned has a story to share. That's the thing. That's the takeaway for anybody to learn if they're going to get into this business. Everybody, if you dig deep enough, has a story to share. They don't have to be someone who's in the worldly sense of things important to have a story to tell, to share. You can find a story if you try hard enough, if you listen. And communication is, by the way, 75% listening. If you try hard enough, you can find the story everywhere and with every person you go to, because they have it. Some people, you have to pull it out of them a little bit harder, but it's there. So long story short, I love folks. And And if you love people, this is a good business still to get into.
Very true. Very true. I think I feel the same way because that's what I enjoyed was going out and all the wide variety of people that you get to meet. You meet people that you would never meet in any other profession. You're going to meet as a journalist, especially and maybe it's this way at all levels, but I just always felt like small town journalism had its own kind of unique flair as opposed to the mainstream national level, the cast of characters that we meet.
And I really feel, Matt, and I feel like you probably agree with me on this. I really feel that the community level journalism is the brand of what we do that probably has the best chance of surviving change. And it's what we do at a local level is something no one else can do. And the street level, the neighborhood level, the community level, somebody's got to tell that, and that's important to people. And anybody can talk about what's happening at the White House. Anybody can talk about what's happening at at the Department of Defense. We can all do that, but equally important is telling what those street level experiences that affect people's lives on a day-to-day basis. I think we've got to continue that. If we don't, someone else will, and maybe find a way to do it better if we're not careful. So I don't ever want to minimize the importance of community journalism.
Oh, I'm totally with you on that. Community journalism is all too often overlooked, but I definitely agree. I've long believed it's the most important one because it's like you going to the city council. That might not be street level necessarily, but just USA Today, nothing against them, Yahoo News, CNN, Fox News, they're not going to cover that. The regional television, they're not going to cover that. The only people that are going to cover that are the reporters right here in Clarksville. So community journalism is how we as a city, a community, a county, how we know what's going on. There's nobody else is going to tell us about that. So yeah, I'm the one big driving force behind this podcast essentially is the importance of that and making sure as many people as I can make aware of it know about that fact. So yeah, I totally agree with you.
I salute you for that. We need that advocacy. So that's awesome. Thank you for that.
Well, it's a humble contribution. Don't give me too much credit. But this has been a great chat. I really appreciate you taking the time to talk with me.
It is my pleasure, and I'm happy to see you again. It's been a while. I read you, but I just haven't gotten to see you lately. So thank you very much. I'm honored that you would ask me to come on. I appreciate it.
Oh yeah, hey, and maybe we can do it again sometime. This has been really good.
Let's do. I'd love that.
All right, great. All right, thank you, Jimmy. Thank you for the great stories, for the great insight, and for the incredibly vivid images of cat hoarding that I am not soon going to forget. Some important announcements. This week, I'm going to be part of the Hoptown Fan Fest, which is put together by the Hopkinsville Christian County Public Library. This was a pretty big success last year, so they're bringing it back. Now, of course, COVID-19 happened, so they're doing the entire event virtually through their Facebook page. I'll be a part of it throughout the week, so make sure to follow their Facebook page, facebook.com/HoptownFanFest. They'll have promotions and giveaways, including a free copy of my comic, Moby Dick, Back from the Deep #1. And as if that weren't enough, I'll be doing a digital presentation all about self-publishing and DIY promotion on Saturday, September 12th. So like their page, like my presentation, leave some kind comments, and make all of us feel good about ourselves in these difficult times. Also, as crazy as it is to say, Halloween is just around the corner. And in case you don't know, this is my family's absolute favorite holiday. So keep an eye out for photos and video of our decorations here at our new home. We'll be posting those all over social media and our newsletter, which brings me to the all-important social media plugs. Please subscribe to our YouTube channel, which you can find at tinyurl.com/ShoreManorYouTube. You'll find full episodes and clips from this podcast there, plus other cool content, not least of which is our annual Halloween decoration walkthrough. And if you're watching this episode on YouTube, please like, comment, and subscribe. You can also follow news and announcements from this podcast on Twitter at Journalist Tales. You can keep up with all the announcements about future episodes and guests over there. And speaking of news, for all of you out there still using email, be sure to sign up for the official Shore Manor newsletter. You'll get all the latest updates about this podcast, my books, and even upcoming appearances, which are currently digital until this pandemic subsides. So check that out at tinyurl.com/Shore Manor newsletter. And last but not least, this show's official website is www.mattshore.net/smalltownjournalist. You can find each episode there, plus links to subscribe wherever you get your podcasts. And if you would like to connect directly with me, there are several ways that you can do it. You can find me on Twitter at @TheMattShore and on Instagram at @TheShore. You can also reach me the old-fashioned way by email at mattshore@hotmail.com. And there's also my website, which has all the info you could possibly want about me, this podcast, and my other works. That's www.mattshore.net. So thanks for checking out this episode of Tales from a Small Town Journalist. Thanks for checking out Jimmy's kind words, his stories, and his memories all about his career. And like he said, and like I will say to echo those sentiments, make sure if you know any journalists in your area, let them know they're doing a good job. They need to hear that way, way more than they do. Subscribe to your local publications. I've said this many times, the most reliable and important journalist publications you're going to have come from your hometown. They are vital, as vital today as they have ever been. So with that, I will close this podcast out the way that I always do, saying, keep reading and keep listening. Thanks.